What happens when a country of more than 90 million people begins to fracture, while the world's most powerful military hints it may intervene, and the neighbors closest to the fallout quietly try to stop it? In Iran, nationwide protests have killed hundreds, possibly thousands, and as Washington escalates its rhetoric, Arab Gulf states are racing behind closed doors to prevent a war they believe could redraw the entire Middle East. If this moment escalates, the balance of power across the Gulf could shift in days. If it stalls, a frozen crisis could harden into something more dangerous. And if it collapses entirely, the consequences would not stop at Iran's borders. Oil markets, military basing, regional alliances, and global supply chains are all exposed to what happens next. This is not simply about protests or diplomacy. It is about whether the region can avoid repeating the catastrophic chain reactions seen in Iraq 2 decades ago. Iran's unrest began in late December and quickly spread nationwide, cutting across ethnic, economic, and geographic lines. Iranian authorities report that more than 100 members of the security forces have been killed in clashes. Opposition groups claim the number of protesters killed exceeds 1,000, a figure that cannot be independently verified but signals the scale of violence. Internet shutdowns and media restrictions have made verification difficult, but the protests are among the most sustained since 2009, involving major cities and provincial towns alike. As images circulated and pressure mounted, US President Donald Trump publicly warned Tehran that military action remained an option. He urged Iranians to seize control of state institutions and suggested outside help was coming. Even without specifics, the message alone altered regional calculations. For Gulf states that sit within missile range of Iran, rhetoric can be as destabilizing as aircraft carriers. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman responded by activating parallel diplomatic tracks. Saudi officials, according to multiple regional observers, pressed Washington privately to avoid military strikes. Qatar and Oman focused on restoring communication between American and Iranian officials after reports suggested direct contacts had broken down earlier in the week. For Gulf leaders, the sudden silence between Washington and Tehran raised alarms more than any public threat. The fear is grounded in experience. In 2019, a drone and missile attack on Saudi oil facilities temporarily removed nearly half of the kingdom's oil production from the market. The strike was attributed to Iran-backed forces and demonstrated how quickly energy infrastructure could be targeted. In June last year, Iran launched missiles at Qatar's Al Udeid airbase after US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Although Iran gave advance warning and casualties were avoided, the precedent was set. US bases in the Gulf are legitimate targets during escalation. Today, the region hosts dozens of American military installations. Al Udeid alone houses thousands of US personnel and functions as a central command hub. On Wednesday, US officials quietly drew down some staff from the base after Iranian warnings that regional facilities would be hit if Iran were attacked. Those warnings reportedly extended to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. Iran's capabilities remain significant despite years of sanctions and recent military setbacks. It maintains a diverse missile arsenal, including ballistic and supersonic systems, and retains influence through allied militias across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Even a limited exchange could activate multiple fronts simultaneously, overwhelming regional defenses and complicating any attempt at containment. For Gulf states, the nightmare scenario is not an Iranian victory or defeat, but collapse. Iran's population exceeds 90 million, nearly triple that of Iraq in 2003. Its institutions, though weakened, still function. Its weapons stockpiles are larger. and its alliances, though strained, remain intact. A sudden power vacuum could fracture the country along ideological, ethnic, or regional lines, producing instability on a scale the region has never absorbed. Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman have spent years managing pragmatic relationships with Tehran. Qatar shares the world's largest natural gas field with Iran, making cooperation unavoidable. Oman has long served as a quiet intermediary between Iran and the West. Kuwait maintains careful neutrality. These states see stability, even under tension, as preferable to upheaval. The United Arab Emirates occupies a more complex position. Dubai functions as a major commercial hub for Iranian trade, and bilateral economic ties are deep. Disruption inside Iran would directly affect Emirati ports, finance, and logistics. Yet the UAE's strategic alignment has diverged in recent years, particularly through closer ties with Israel and differing positions on Yemen and Sudan. Its silence during the current crisis reflects that balancing act. Saudi Arabia's calculus is shaped by transformation at home. Vision 2030 aims to reduce oil dependence, attract tourism, and draw foreign investment. Regional war would undermine every pillar of that strategy. While Riyadh has historically opposed Tehran, recent rapprochement efforts focused on reopening communication channels and preventing miscalculation. Saudi leaders have made clear that abrupt regime change anywhere in the region introduces risks they cannot control. Iran's leadership, for its part, is navigating between repression and restraint. While security forces have cracked down hard, Tehran has avoided actions that would hand Washington a clear pretext for intervention. Officials have warned neighbors of consequences while signaling an interest in keeping escalation contained. This tightrope reflects an understanding that external pressure, combined with internal unrest, is historically destabilizing. One possible path forward hinges on de-escalation. In this scenario, Gulf mediation restores limited US-Iran communication. Protest intensity declines through fatigue, repression, or concessions. Energy markets stabilize, and regional militaries return to normal readiness. The system absorbs the shock, bruised but intact. This outcome preserves the status quo, however unsatisfying it may be for all sides. Another scenario is miscalculation. A strike, whether intentional or accidental, triggers Iranian retaliation against regional bases. Shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz face disruption. Oil prices spike sharply, affecting inflation from South Asia to Europe. Insurance rates soar. Global markets react violently. Even if fighting remains limited, the psychological impact reshapes investment and diplomacy for years. Beyond the Middle East, the consequences ripple outward. South Asian economies dependent on Gulf energy imports face higher costs and currency pressure. Pakistan and India, both with deep ties to Iran and Gulf states, would be forced into delicate diplomatic balancing acts. China, heavily invested in Iranian energy and regional infrastructure, would reassess security commitments. Europe, already strained by energy volatility, would confront renewed supply uncertainty. At the global level, the crisis tests the limits of deterrence and influence. It raises questions about how much leverage external powers truly hold over internal uprisings, and whether military threats stabilize or destabilize complex societies. It also exposes how deeply interconnected modern conflicts have become, where a protest in one country can threaten economic stability continents away. As of now, the situation remains unresolved. Washington signals both restraint and readiness. Tehran projects defiance and caution. Gulf states continue urgent, quiet diplomacy, driven not by ideology but by proximity. They understand that when wars begin, neighbors pay first, longest, and most deeply.